Welcome to the reality check. September 11th, 2018. So it was 17 years ago today that we had the attacks pretty much across America, as you can say, obviously New York, Pennsylvania, D.C., but obviously it affected everybody. It's always there. Every year you can learn something. You hear a new person's story from people that were affected by being in it, by having someone who they know was involved, to people that were here on the left coast, to people that had never been there and really don't have a concept of the layout of the area, to people that had been there, hundreds of times. So we had the heroes, firefighters, police, average citizens, dragging people out, carrying people out, barely being able to walk themselves, knowing imminent danger was there, saving lives. You had, like Todd Beamer from Flight 93, who him and a bunch of other passengers decided to make a choice and, stop this from getting worse. And just, many of people, like I said, from workers that came in after the fact, that risked not only their health, but, your mental sanity. I mean, everybody knows from anybody who was in that, you walked away almost like a ghost. You had seen something that almost too real to comprehend. To not only just the destruction, the death, the shock, the terror, I mean, just even to the simplest form of landmarks that you knew just disappeared. For me and what I grew up in New Jersey in a town called Cliffside Park, famous at one time for Anderson Avenue, which was one of the biggest cruising areas, not only in New Jersey, but across the U.S. at one time. So the police cracked down on cars doing that. Also famous there were movies that have made there, like Part of Copland was there, and other ones. Obviously Big, I know most people know Big with Tom Hanks. That was actually filmed at my elementary school, part of it, school number 6, and different other parts of Cliffside Park, besides, other towns, of course, in New Jersey. Cliffside Park, known for, like, historians or people, older Palisade Amusement Park, had the first salt river pool. So that was the town I grew up in. It's a small town, but heavily populated. So I grew up from about age 5, probably half the way through my kindergarten year, till I left where my parents lived, which for me was about age 21, right before 21, probably, it was around 20, when I left and moved out of my parents' place. So the place we lived on was on Anderson Avenue, and my parents were, not well off financially by any means. We lived in an apartment, which, no big deal, but that area was different because most people were pretty well off. Bergen County is where Cliffside Park sits. It's one of the, I think it's the richest, at the time I know, it's definitely the richest county in New Jersey. Expensive homes there, right next door is Fort Lee, George Washington Bridge. A lot of famous people live there, come there. So we lived in an apartment building. It was 4 stories, and if you went on the roof, you can actually see across the Hudson River and see, the World Trade Center from there. So very familiar with the building for that. Very familiar just going there. I had been there a bunch of times. Been to New York. I mean, you're in that part of New York downtown. You can see it anywhere you look. That's a landmark. That's something. It was either that or the iconic, Empire State Building where you saw they had the inflatable King Kong. Sometimes you could see that from where I grew up if you were on the roof. So, those were important memories, iconic memories, just landmarks of my childhood. And so at the time when, 17 years ago, 2001, I was living in Arizona, firmly entrenched in Arizona. So it was really early in the morning here, and I was actually just happened to turn on the TV, um, and the first World Trade Center it was hit, just hit, and they were actually showing replays of it on the TV, and I was like, to me, I turned to somebody who was a fan. I was just saying, it's got to be like terrorism, because anybody who grew up in the area knows no planes at all fly in that area. I mean, even like little commercial, like even the little private jets don't fly in that area really per se. But especially not anything big and commercial never would fly in that area. There's no way. And if you got in trouble somehow, you flip it in the river. Just like Sully did. That's what you would do. So I knew that was not good, obviously, for many reasons. And on the news, they were just like, oh, miscalculation and whatnot. And, obviously, they're not going to start off with alarming people saying, nah, it's terrorism. It's that. I get that. A little cautious at first. But then right when they were showing that, they just got word that the second tower was hit. And then they were kind of like, well, that's kind of strange. But yeah, 2-plane miscalculation, maybe because of. And it's like, yeah, there was no question in my mind that this was terrorism, and it would forever change a lot of things. And even if you almost can't comprehend. I thought about what people I know what they know, what they felt, what they saw. I thought about that because they're, like I said, I grew up in New Jersey. Those people, I mean, literally, you could see or feel even, from that part of New Jersey. Was anyone I know in there? Anybody I know's family in there? And so it was a strange day all around. Obviously, I remember I was out on my motorcycle. I was coming back to where I lived because I had to go to work later that afternoon, and it was just surreal seeing the only planes that were flying were military planes. It would be quiet in the sky, and then you'd see like a jet fighter, which is common, out here if you go by the 303, they have training bases and stuff, but the jet fighter just streaking across, what we call Loop 202, which you never see fighter planes over here on this part like that, and just streaking down and then going. So there would be total silence, and then they were just basically going back and forth, making sure everything was clear. So that was even more eeriness and strangeness to the whole, all of 9/11. It was just the quietness of that, and then seeing military planes come by, and everything seemed different. I remember they'd had a special edition of the newspaper come out that day, and you actually seeing people on street corners, which you never see out here, selling newspapers. Something I grew up with in the East Coast, but not out here. And it forever changed the world. It's definitely tighter security, definitely a lot serious now when you go to fly. It's a serious issue now, where before it was fun and games, a joke, and whatnot. It was definitely a different time there. Questions that people have, some of the people that were involved in this still haven't been charged, co-conspirators, as you might say. There's also just, the failures that we had. There was, even from Arizona here, we actually had officials trying to tell the FBI this could be a possibility. You had a lot of people close, and yet we were so far away on this. And maybe it's because nothing like this ever happened, and people didn't want to believe, or a combination of all of those things. It's just, forever changing that. I mean, people's lives are still affected by this. You have people that still have cancer, people obviously that grew up with, missing a lot of their family, or multiple family members died from 9/11. I mean, there was, I think, the number was 61 women that were pregnant at the time lost their husbands during 9/11. I mean, just, wow. Changing. Some people lost not only a husband, but an uncle at the same time. And it's just, our government had such a pulse on this. It should have been stopped. unfortunately, and obviously from now to be revisionist history to say. Um, but like I said, there are lots of things that I remember the first time that I went back to New York. It was maybe 4 years later, 5 years later, and obviously, being a New Jersey kid, one of my favorite things would be to go down to Hoboken, New Jersey, and you take what's called the PATH train, kind of like a subway, but goes from New York right to New Jersey, and you get out. You can go to places like right by Madison Square Garden, which obviously I'd go to watch the Rangers, or if you're going to watch the Knicks. You can take it down to other different parts of the city, the PATH train, or take it to subways and stuff. But obviously, if you want to go to the Village and party and whatnot, or Soho, all those type of things in New York, the little sub towns in New York, you take the PATH train. It was always fun to ride. I mean, I remember times, like I said, going to Ranger games where it would be pitch black in there and people would just be screaming, "Let's go Rangers," the excitement of stuff. I always loved the PATH train. I remember the first time I went back to New York after 9/11. So I was in the PATH train, and it would just kind of let you out, like we're almost right by the World Trade Center. And this time, obviously, because those tunnels were all destroyed, you come out and you are above ground before you got off the PATH train, and you can see, like, the buildings are gone, and then it hits you more, and it's real. And I remember, it was always a busy work atmosphere, like everyone go, 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 right around the World Trade Center. And this time when I got out, and it's almost 5 years later at the time, you see police there with, basically machine guns and locked, obviously understandable, but it's striking, it's awkward, it's different, it's surreal almost to see. Just, I mean, one, you still saw some of the, at that time it was cleaned out, but obviously the big holes in the ground, they hadn't really started working on it at the time. And then to see the police there, and just the different atmosphere, the different feeling that, like I said, it's 5 years later, and just even still the tension, the uneasiness, the what's this person doing, are those cops going to do, it's just a beyond surreal feeling. Wow. I mean, there was so much to take in, from the change in scenery to the whole atmosphere of it all. I remember seeing some of the drawings the kids left there. Just they posted up in the PATH train station, just copies of drawings the little kids did. Some, like, "I hope you're okay, Daddy," the sad ones, or some, "We pray for you," or "Thank you for helping my mom get out there," just for every end of the spectrum. Hopefully, sometimes you think we didn't even learn our lesson from that, and there's not anything we did to deserve it as a country. People make excuses. We did this, we did that. There's nothing we've ever done to anybody that was of anything near that. Has America made mistakes? Of course. But we've never done anything with such ill will to anybody. And, without being provoked, of course. But, it's definitely changed a lot of things, from just your safety at all times. Now you think of a lot more. It's almost like kids these days, they have to grow up so much quicker because there's so much more danger around them, from people trying to kidnap them, child molest and all that stuff. You have to watch after them. Your head has to be on the swivel. You have to protect them. And then you have to tell them so they can help protect themselves and make it easier for you. And they kind of lose some of their childhood from that. And that's kind of the way 9/11, I think, was for a generation of us. I won't say childhood, but you lost a lot of freedom. And it's not, I don't care that they search me at the airport. I hope they do. I want them to make sure there's nothing bad and nothing that's ever going to happen. I wish they'd be more stricter on some accounts to some people searching. We shouldn't leave any stone unturned. We have the technology, and you know what? If someone doesn't like it, they don't have to fly. It's not a right to fly. It's a privilege. You know, we need to be safe, and we need to keep, you know, our country safe. I mean, it's not even a one person. It's, you know, something like that's an attack on our whole country, and we need to be safe. So I don't mind that, but I mean, you lost a lot of your sense of freedom, a lot of your sense of happiness. You know, you have to think of a lot of things. There are people gunning for you, and people always say, you know, we don't want to start wars, and we don't want war, we want peace. And you see the little, you know, the footprint of the American chicken, peace, peace, peace. You know, that's a great sentiment, but you can't have peace with someone who doesn't want to have peace with you. You know, like Golda Meir said something to the effect of, you can't have peace with somebody that hates you more than they love their own kids. So if they're willing to take their kid and sacrifice their life to kill you, it's hard for you to have peace with them. It's impossible. Peace has to be a two-way street. And if somebody just wants to kill you no matter what you do, they're not interested in having peace in you, then you're at war. Whether you want to be or you don't, you're at war. And that's something that was hard for people to deal with. You know, but it is what it is. You're at war. Do you want war? No. But that's a declaration of war. It was, and it still is to this day. It's a war that has not ended. You see all around, there are attacks. Now, they might be in other countries. They might be on smaller scales here. But there are many people with this ideology that unfortunately want to take our way of life down. And whatever the reason that they have, or I say excuse, we lost, you know, we had to grow up. We had to grow up as a nation. Is it, you know, what we want to do? No, but it's what we have to do, just like our forefathers did. You know, when there was World War I, World War II, we had to grow up. And we had to do things that weren't easy, that weren't pretty, that weren't nice. But it was to give our children a better opportunity than we had to keep the progress going. So there are some, you know, different things about 9/11. There were two 9/11 hijackers that rented a room from an FBI informant. Who was the director of the FBI during that time? Yes, Robert Mueller. Interesting, right? A man of good clarity who suppressed the investigations on why an FBI informant not only rented a room to two terrorists, but also helped one open up a bank account. You know, there's, you know, many other facts. Like I said, the one where 61 pregnant women, you know, lost their husbands on 9/11. Well over 3,000 lives, you know, from, like I said, not only people that were in the buildings, but also how many, you know, workers came and were killed, not maybe on that day, but they got sick from it and died. And then 9/11, you know, it doesn't go by without normal degenerates, you know, from people that were cheering it on when it was happening, and you get people in the media denying it. There's video clips, you can see it everywhere, that people in other countries and people in our country were cheering it on. It's a fact. It's on video. Debate it all you want. Okay. So you have people like Joe Scarborough today who says Trump's done more damage than 9/11. You know, if that's your belief, whatever. I mean, But to say that on a day like today, and Joe Scarborough, the absolute buffoon who has no credibility, to only be topped by the dope. Yes, the dope, or the Pope, as they say. Now, we know about the sexual abuse, and the Pope has never stood up and done anything. He made some wet noodle statement that they've still done nothing about. Like I said, I went over this on the show about what he should do, what action he should take, how he should come out. And he doesn't care. They really don't care about this. You know what? If it was your kid who got attacked, I think you'd have a different, no, nothing. It's pretty much like, oh yeah, we're sorry. We're so sorry. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah, we're sorry. And now today, I don't know if it was exactly the same, maybe it was yesterday, but top Vatican official said that the clerical sex abuse scandal is such a game-changing catastrophe for the Catholic Church. It's the Church's own 9/11. I mean, how do you compare that to 9/11? Firstly, the church brought this on themselves. It was their people who molested these kids and their people who helped cover it up. It's the church who still has not sold one damn painting in the Vatican to fund counseling for these kids, to give them any money on their own. Everything that they've given up had to be pulled and dragged out, and they hide behind this and that. Their people were the ones that did this crime upon the kids, and their people were the ones that covered it up. And not only covered it up when it happened, but covered it up when it happened again. And then they covered it up when it happened again. And I'm talking about the same person who did it. I'm not talking about 10 different people there. I'm saying somebody did it, they covered it up, they moved them somewhere, then they got caught doing it again. Even if you want to give someone the benefit of the doubt, that's your friend or your work or whatever, they get caught doing it again, you cut your strings and say, you know what, once, okay, it's on you. Now twice, it's on me. Nope, they sent this person on their way again, and of course, what do you think is going to happen again? It's the same old with these people. And to compare that to 9/11 is embarrassing. And I know that the Pope did not say that himself, but I'm waiting for him to come out and say what was said is totally unacceptable and disgusting, and we haven't even addressed enough and done what's right on our end, much less to compare this to 9/11, which is a slap in the face to not only citizens of America, the victims of 9/11, but anybody, family that have gone to compare that, you molesting kids or your friends molesting kids, to 9/11. It's ridiculous, disgusting, embarrassing, a disgrace, and still shows you that all these people have an idea what went on. So I can't say they have no idea. They just think that they're above the law. They think they're above the law. And that's why when these crimes are happening, and now even when you're talking about the crimes, it's like a burden to them that they have to deal with these crimes. No, you could have taken care of it a long time ago. Nobody's going to blame you. If your brother or your cousin or your uncle's a molester, nobody's going to blame you. But if you sat there and watched your brother or your cousin molest somebody and you didn't do anything about it, and then you watched it again and you didn't do anything about it, then they'll blame you. And they should, because you are an accomplice. Sorry. that's just the way it is. It's just wrong, disgusting, stupid, and it shows you that not only these people think they're above the law, but all they care about is woe is me, I might not have as many seats filled. You know, I'm all for religion. I think it's good. You should have morals, you should have standards, you should want something more or reach for something better, have a system to hold yourself accountable. But in the world today, what you have with these clowns and other clowns is all they care about is what money they can get. And it's not pass the plate around and get the donations as much anymore. It's how can we get the money from, we'll take in these refugees because we get paid for it. You look at the Catholic charities, the Jewish charities, all these other charities, they get multiple millions of dollars to take in the refugees, the lesser, and that's why they push for it. That's why they push for the open borders. They get paid for all this stuff. Oh, yeah. We're going to put 3 kids in a room with a mattress, and we'll feed them in an old can of private labeled soup, and we're getting $100 a day for each one. But we care about the kids and you don't. As a matter of fact, you should donate some more to us. That, unfortunately, is the problem. All about the money, all about the profit, all about them having nice things, and they don't care who they abuse, use, and take advantage of. Sad but true. So now, we'll switch gears a little bit here. And we'll talk about the UFC. We had UFC 228 that just took place this past weekend, Dallas, Texas. So this is the second time in the last few months that I said that there would be a prelim bout of interest, and it ended up on the main card somehow. So I remember I was saying Jimmy Rivera and John Dawson, good prelim bout, could be a main card bout. And of course, we learned that Nico Montana had to cancel fighting. You know, she dropped out about 2 days before. She was supposed to fight Valentina Shevchenko for the Women's Flyweight Championship, and Nico pulled out of the fight. The weight cut or whatever, she had medical issues. So she ended up getting stripped of her title, and Valentina will fight someone else for the belt coming up soon. I don't think it's been made official yet, but they have somebody in mind. So that fight was canceled. The Rivera-Dobson fight was added on as the second fight of the pay-per-view card. So the first fight of the pay-per-view card was Abdul Razak Al-Hassan versus Nico Price. Abdul was 9-1, 3-1 in the UFC. Nico 12-1-1, 4-1-1 in the UFC. And like I said, Abdul was all about that knockout power. And Nico had submissions and knockout power. Abdul had good judo, Muay Thai, and Nico had, a big heart. This guy took shots before in fights, and he stayed in there and came back and won. And I thought that Nico would wear him down a little bit, get a second-round submission. And Abdul, he had none of that. He came in right after Nico, 43 seconds, a knockout. That gives Abdul 10 knockouts, and he's 10-1. All of his wins have been by knockout. So obviously his power stood true, and it was more than Nico's heart. So he'll be moving up, and Nico will have to regroup and see what he does from here. So the second fight was that prelim fight that I talked about. Jimmy Rivera, 21-2. He had won 20 in a row, and he was wiped out of his last fight by Marlon Morales. And John Dobson was 20-9, and his last loss was to the same fighter, Marias. So both guys, I said, had good power for the weight, but Dobson was fast, and he could take a punch. And we're not sure if Rivera could take a punch because Marias let him up pretty good. So I thought that Dobson would win by decision. And I think this fight you learn that Rivera can take a punch. You learn that Moraes must hit really hard because he really hammered Rivera, and that was it. And this time around, Rivera got the best of Dobson. It was back and forth, but he won, the unanimous decision. So he had control of the majority of the fight. And now he'll move back in a position to, maybe fight a top contender. And for Dobson, it's just, I think, kind of gatekeeper status at this point. He's a good fighter, exciting fighter. He'll keep you honest. If you don't have good skills, he'll put you out. But if you're getting top of the echelon, he's, starting to lose those fights. So the third fight of the night was a featherweight fight with Zabib. Now, I don't know if I have enough time in the show to say his last name, but it's Magdalena Shapiro, and he was fighting Brandon Davis. So Zabib was 15-1. I said he could win anyway. Brandon Davis, 9-4. He came from Dana White's Tuesday night contender series. I thought Zabib would be too much. He's just getting better every fight. He looks like a star in the making. He's a big dude as far as tall for a 45er. I thought he'd win by a second-round submission. So in this fight, Davis came out. Game opponent came out really good the first round. He showed a lot of kicks. Zabib was patient, and it was pretty much I'd say maybe even Davis's round in the first. And in the second round, Zabib attacked. He wrestled Davis down, and he knee barred him. So Zabib in the second round, Davis, he showed okay, and Zabib just continues to roll on. So for Zabib, he called out Chad Mendes after the fight, and I'm happy for that. I think that's a really good fight. Chad Mendes, who came off suspension, looked great in his last fight. Chad Mendes, remember, he had Conor McGregor in big trouble in his fight when it was on short notice, and then he ended up gassing out, but he wrestled McGregor down. He beat McGregor. He's beating him up at that one time, and he just gassed out quick. So the guy can hang there with anybody at the top of the division, Mendes. He looked good in his last fight, and I think this is a good one for him. You got a rising star here. If Zabib wins this fight, I think it's pretty much next in line for Conor. I think for Chad, too, same way. I think this is a good fight for both of them. We'll see. Can Zabib handle the power that Mendes has, the speed that Mendes has, and can Mendes handle Zabib's long reach and his submission game? We will see who wins that fight. But I think that's a really good fight. I hope they make that happen. That would be good for both guys. I think there's your next contender, or one of your next contenders. There's a few other guys in there, but, definitely a good fight. So that was the third one. The fourth fight, co-main event, women's strawweight, Jessica Andrade versus Karolina Kowalkiewicz. Yeah, I can't say that fast. So Jessica Andrade, she was 18-6. Her only two losses in the last 3 years were to fighters who had a title or fought for a title. Andrade, she's just powerful kicks, ground and pound, lots of power. Carolina 12-2. She almost always goes to decision. Carolina's beaten Rose Namajunas, so she's beaten the girl that's a champ now. But she had lost to Joanna Jędrzejczyk. She's lost to her. So is Andrade had lost to her too. I never looked like Carolina was going to win her fights, but she just does. I looked for a strong round one from Andrade, and I thought that Carolina would start taking over and win by split decision. I thought it would be a close fight, and I was ever so wrong, as it seemed like I was on most of this card. But Andrade just came straight forward, reminiscent of almost like Chris Lieben when he would get hit and just come at you, or maybe the old days of Vanderlei Silva where he just comes forward like a beast. And she just started swinging, and Carolina couldn't handle it. Andrade got a KO in the first. I think she should be next in line for a title shot. She just imposed her will. She looked powerful, and she did what she was supposed to do. I guess she didn't want to. That was a smart game plan for her, because there's no way that Carolina was going to knock her out. And I thought normally with Andrade's game plans, she hits hard and stuff, but she doesn't press as much, and that's where Carolina would wear her out. And maybe she and our coaches saw that, and that's why the game plan just come out, come hard, and let's see if she can handle the pressure, or is she going to wilt under it? And she wilted. So Andrade's power is a loss. So that's a winner there. Um, and then, of course, we had the main event, which was for the welterweight title. We had Tyrone Woodley, who had been off over a year, against Darren Till, who had always struggled to make weight. So my thought process in this, Tyrone's 18-3, Till was 17-0. I thought there were a lot of questions coming in this fight, one being, would Till make weight? And so that was answered. He did make weight, and didn't seem like there were any major problems. Because he had failed to make weight 2 of his last 4 fights before. And I thought, how would Woodley come out? He hadn't fought over a year. And what was interesting, a key observation that I had was, like a broken clock. You're right twice a day. And that's kind of like my observation for this whole card. I was at least right twice. I thought that Woodley, since he'd won the belt, he was a very timid fighter. When he was the challenger, he was more of a stalker and a striker. When he fought Condit, when he fought Lawler, he was a striker. He was a beast. He was imposing as well. And then when he won the title, and I know Maya's a little different style, but still, he just seemed so timid, trying to just find a way to win, to outpoint people. I thought that, which way would Woodley fight? That was my question. And then with the layoff, who knows? Till had gotten better every fight, I'd said, but Till had not faced anyone at the level of Woodley. And that's kind of the thing you see a lot of these times. You get guys that are steamrolling opponents, and then for whatever reason, somebody's hurt, or they look so good, they're hyped up. Like in this case, Covington couldn't fight, so now you have Till stepping in there. So that's a big leap from who we fought before. He hadn't fought that level of competition. And the most common outcome I had was Woodley winning by decision. I thought that Woodley could survive the big shots. He had only been knocked out once. We knew that Woodley could take a shot. And I thought if Till had a weight problem, that would slow him down and give Woodley a chance to capitalize in the last few rounds. But obviously, Till didn't have that weight problem, which was good for Till. And it was nice to see Woodley come out like his old self, especially with all that time off. He just didn't seem rusty. And like Dominic Cruz says, there's no such thing as ring rust. Well, in this case, there wasn't. Woodley looked more like his pre-title self. When he was on that pre-title run, like I said, he was a stalker, striking and aggressive wrestling, not just trying to get you down and control you. This was wrestling for a purpose. It was a good first round by Woodley. He looked quick. He was coming after Till. He, like I said, wrestled with a purpose. Second round, Till probably saw that and thinks I got to change something up. So Till came out the second round way more aggressive. And Woodley caught him with a hook, and the dude's got a lot of power. And Woodley, just kept on punching elbows and used his wrestling to keep him down while still hitting him. And then he slid for the Darce choke. And that's a wrap, folks. Woodley in round 2 was, a good solidification of Woodley showing you why he's the champ. And now it's Darren Till maybe definitely going back to the drawing board. Does he stay at this weight? Does he move up a weight class? But you see this guy now has to figure out a way to close this gap because it was pretty big. So, Covington's next. We'll see Woodley Covington, I think. That's the most logical fight. Ought to be interesting because Woodley's bigger, Woodley's more powerful, but the games are so similar. They're both wrestlers, and they'll both use it. So it ought to be an interesting fight to see Covington and Woodley. I know that'll be interesting. So the next card we have the next pay-per-view, everybody knows, on my wife's birthday, October 6th. Conor McGregor and Habib. So when it comes time, we will break that one down, and ought to be an interesting card. Hopefully nobody gets arrested or misses weight or gets in trouble before that happens. We want to, So we have, let's see, that's the end of the UFC talk. And we can get back to other conversations, right? First week of NFL football. You had the Kaepernick controversy. The bottom line with Kaepernick, you see people, I'd kneel with Kaepernick before I'd stand with Trump, all this nonsense. I mean, it's really simple. One, I'll speak for myself. I didn't say nobody, but in general, I'll say, because I speak to a lot of people, but I know definitely for myself, we watch sports to get away from politics. And that's why we don't like any of this stuff. You want to protest, you want to do it on your own time. This isn't 25 cents to watch you play football. Tickets are $100. To get cable, $100+ a month. We don't pay this money to see you posture pose and whatever the reason is. Do that on your own time. You guys can call a press conference on your own time and do all that stuff. And then, put aside the fact that Kaepernick was taking a knee. He didn't even know why at first. This guy's an easily led, he's an automaton, right? Easily led. He was just listening to what he was told. He had no idea what was going on. He couldn't even explain what he was doing in the first place. Just look at it. Personally, it was probably just a cop hater or thought he was funny. And then he was doing this other stuff. People were egging him on, do this. He had no idea. Listen to his press conferences or when they asked him when he first started. He had no idea what was going on. But putting that aside, putting aside the socks, let's just say with humor, putting aside all that, here's a guy who supports Fidel Castro, or he did support Fidel Castro. Why would I support someone like that? Castro was a nasty person who hurt many people. I know he's the hero of a bunch of people, but yet they talk about how great he was and he did this and that. Yet they never take part in that. They never go down and try their health care down there in Cuba. Trust me. Took a country that was once great, once, pretty much the sugar capital of the world, and turned it into just a wasteful place. And we know a lot of people want to go down there to get some cheap hookers or cigars, but for the rest of us who have morals, Cuba's not a great place. Now, that's part of it. Here's also a guy who's friends with Linda Sessor. Well, we know her. The girl who's fighting for women's rights but wants Sharia law. That's kind of like me dying and eating 6 donuts and 3 cream puffs. Sharia law and women's rights don't go together. I'm sorry. You can tell me whatever they do. She's also an anti-Semite, Linda Sessor. But that's the people who Kaepernick supports. You're going to tell me he's a hero? You're going to tell me you kneel with him? It's embarrassing and disgraceful. This guy's donated to people who have murdered cops, straight up. I'm not talking about a dispute or this and that, this person's out. No, people that actually went after and murdered cops, he's donated money to them. So, please, check yourself, Check yourself before you wreck yourself, or it's not really wreck yourself, but at least just check out the facts before you, I don't know. Do yourself a favor, you don't want to look foolish. So, last week, there was a PJ Media contributor and Fox News guest, Denise McAllister. She tweeted, "At the root of abortion hysteria is women's unhinged desire for irresponsible sex. Sex is their god, abortion is their sacrament. It's abhorrent as women have flung themselves from the heights of being the world's civilized force to the muck and mire of dehumanizing depravity." Now, the message, a lot of it's on target. Would I have used some of those words? No, but who am I to one, get in the way of somebody else's free speech? And number two is most of that is true. A lot of this abortion craze is people just want to have irresponsible sex. I hear people say, I can't afford a baby, so that's why I have an abortion. Okay, well, don't have sex. And they look at you like, well, I mean, if you can't afford to have baby, don't have sex, and you won't have a baby. I don't know, like, to simplify it, if I don't have any money and I don't have any credit cards, I don't go into Ruth's Chris and start ordering, because chances are they're going to want me to pay. So if you know you can't afford to have a child, or you don't want one at all, and you're not going to get, your tubes tied, or then don't have sex. It's pretty simple. So back to the story is Denise McAllister, you know what she said. It's her tweet, whatever, whether you agree with her or not. You could debate it all you want. But this girl now, or this woman, has taken herself off of social media because she's had threats, not only from Twitter, outside of Twitter, from where she lives. People telling they're going to rape her and strangle her. Obviously, her kids are, upset about it. So here you have people that are saying, my body, my choice, and now you're threatening to rape somebody in the same sentence. It's like the idiots who go to abortion clinics and say it's murder, and then they bomb the place. Moron, I don't know. I'm just moron, I'm saying. So you read some of the responses that some of these morons do, and this is social media now was what, the home telephone was at one point. Or not even a home telephone, but just a telephone in general, back in the day. You get people that say stuff that would never say that to you, to your face, because you'd knock them out. Like when I was a teenager, and some punk would call me up and say, I'm going to punch you, I'm going to do this, I'm going to hit you harder than Mike Tyson. And I'd be like, great, here's my address, come over. And they wouldn't come over. And then they call you again, I'm going to beat you, I'm going to punch you so hard, your baby's going to feel blah, 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 blah. Okay, where do you want to meet? Oh, let's do this right now. Of course, nowhere to be found. They're tough on the phone, they're big guys on the phone, and then they're nothing. And that's the way these people are. You have a bunch of people over social media that are a bunch of, they're tough guys, tough girls. And half of them are in their mom's basement, or they don't say anything because they know. You see people reacting to this Denise McAllister. And somebody wrote, people don't react well to your extremism. What do you mean react well? You can debate it, you can say I don't agree with it, or it's hogwash, or it's bullshit. But don't react well? You mean threatening to rape or kill somebody, not bad reaction? That's ridiculous. They're threats. It's the same old, people making excuses. And then you have people they admit what their goals are. Half of these people, they don't care about women. You wouldn't threaten to rape a woman if you care about a woman's health, a woman's, her choice. You're not protecting any life. You just want to control people. I don't know. It's amazing. And then you never see, in cases like this, where are all these feminists. You know, we hear them all the time. Kamala Harris, Nancy Pelosi, Elizabeth Warren. Not a word out of them. Not a word. People are talking about raping somebody. Not a word. Not a word. All of a sudden, they can't find a microphone to be next to. You know? And we know that we always hear about how bad America is and we're not nice to the refugees or people that come here, yada, yada, yada. If other countries would help out as much as we did, the world would be a better place, right? So since like 1975, the U.S. has resettled over 3 million refugees. Over 207,000, you know, pretty much per year. About the only year that we were really low was obviously right after 9/11, of course. That next year we cut it down under 30,000. But in general, we're at about 200,000 or more. You know, and yet we hear how not nice America is and blah, blah, blah. Now, where are the other countries putting their money where their mouth is? Really? I mean, they take in very little people. And yet they're the first to yap to talk, you know? And then you see what it does to their country when they do take in, and they realize, man, our people are getting raped, our people. In England, they're telling their own citizens to shut up, don't worry if the boys touch you. Is that the country we want? Is that what we're going for? I don't think that's our goal here. Now, this past week we had the Yapper come out. The Yapper, Barack Obama. I mean, sometimes you think, does this guy have Alzheimer's? Here he is talking about how Trump's never going to get these numbers to this, never going to happen again. You shouldn't expect that's never going to happen again. And then it happens, and then he's like, well, yeah, of course, it's because of the plan that I laid out. I mean, how do you even say that with a straight face? If you wanted to say, if you didn't say he'd never get to those numbers and say, well, yeah, I set up the motion and game plan, that's one thing. When you tell someone they're never going to get the numbers and then you're, and just, yeah. Yeah. You know, who knows? All I'm telling you, though, is that Obama's yapping because I don't think it's as much as he thinks he's going to help them. Okay, let me say this. He wants to help them win these midterm elections, not because he wants or doesn't want to, but because he needs them to. Because he's getting to a point of nervousness, Obama. He knows that if none of his friends have control, there's a lot more things that could be found out. Just like Hillary, when she said, if we don't win this election, they'll hang us by the noose. Not an exact quote, but kind of what she said. I don't remember exactly if that's word for word, but basically, if we lose this election, we'll all be home. Because she knew what people could find out. I mean, this is what most of the Mueller investigation is. Shift stuff away, get rid of evidence, destroy, destroy, destroy. Hillary Clinton deleted 30,000, Mueller deleted 300,000. They know there's nothing there, but they want all the evidence hidden of what they did. Everybody knows that Barack Obama illegally emailed Hillary Clinton. He knows what email address he sent it to. It wasn't a government email address. Come on, kids in high school could figure that out. The guy's guilty as sin. Guilty as sin, free as a bird. Sound familiar? Yeah, his buddy, who was a terrorist, Bill Ayers, said the same thing. Guilty as sin, free as a bird. That's Barack Obama. That's Hillary Clinton. That's all these people. And that's why they're nervous and they're talking, because they need to win this midterm. And that's why it's important for you to vote against all their criminal friends. Because it'll come out how Obama knew about the illegal email, how Obama discussed all this stuff about setting up Trump. He got information when they spied on Trump's campaign. They weren't looking for ties to Russia. They were looking for useful stuff they could use to set him up in further things. As it's come out, these people leak their own stories in the media and then use that as an investigation. You know, imagine if you just told the police, "Oh, my neighbor is a criminal," and they said, "Oh, he is? Great. And let's print that in the paper. Oh, look, it says in the paper this guy's a criminal. We're going to have to go search his house. He must be up to something illegal. It says it in the paper. All right, let's go search his house and rip it apart." Well, we found that he stole nothing, but we sure has got all this information on his businesses and how they're successful, so now we can duplicate it for ourselves. That's the name of the game. That's the trick. That's what you say. And now, I'd be remiss not to talk about another part, and I wanted to separate. We opened the show with 9/11, of course, 17 years ago. But there's also always a part 2 to 9/11, as everybody knows. In 2012, there was a coordinated attack against 2 United States government facilities in Benghazi. Ansar al-Sharia, they basically attacked the American diplomatic compound in Benghazi, which resulted in U.S. Ambassador Christopher Stevens not only being killed, U.S. Foreign Service Information Officer Sean Smith being killed. There was also contractor Tyrone Woods, Glenn Doherty. There was also 7 Libyans that were actually part of security and one that were also killed as well. Now, whatever from, they've investigated Hillary, they found nothing. Well, we know why they found nothing. They didn't want to find nothing. Most of the Republicans were shills that were on the committee, and obviously the Democrats didn't want to find out anything. It's obvious. We know. It's irrelevant to whether, if you want to say it was a crime committed or you don't, okay, you can argue that either way. But the bottom line of the actual opposite of the first September 11th that happened, where everybody rushed to help out, risked lives, and did whatever they could to save a fellow person, whether they're American or non-American, whether they were a woman or a man, a kid or an adult. The exact opposite was done on this 9/11 in 2012. We had Americans under attack. Ones that asked for more security before. Put that aside. Put all your other facts aside. All you know is there were Americans asking for help under attack, and we sent no help. And then came out the excuses of they couldn't get there in time. There were planes around that we could have sent up, and maybe they weren't fighter planes, but you buzz fly them over, maybe it scares somebody. Trust me, they're all big men when nobody's there. A plane comes by, it could have been a friggin' passenger jet, and I guarantee you half these people scurry because they're going to get nervous. They ain't going to see up or know what it is. They're going to take off. But to not send any help at all, to have a stand-down order and let people that had very little protection just sit there and die. It's not American. Whether you want to say that's a crime or not, I can tell you it's not American. And you won't convince me, you won't convince most people that it's American to do that. So, the least is they're guilty of not being American. Because it's not American. It's not from the simplest thing down. If you were in your house and somebody was breaking in your door and shooting and your wife called and the police said, well, sorry, ma'am, he's already shooting you. By the time we get there, even if we rush to your house and be there in 2 minutes, you're all going to be dead anyway. So we're just not going to send any help. We don't have the resources, or, our budget's a little tight. Sorry. Just good luck. That wouldn't happen. And for it to happen on a large scale like this, to be people that have volunteered themselves, their lives, their family, for us as a country, and we just let them sit there and rot and didn't even make an effort, even if we're late, even if it didn't change the outcome, to not even give a damn or give an effort is really un-American. And that's this episode of The Reality Check. We'll join you next week. Hopefully we can have a little bit brighter show, but this one's always a little bit on the unpleasant side. It's a day in history that hopefully makes us progress one day. Have a safe week, and we will see you next week.